Hello friends. Welcome back to the channel. It genuinely feels good to say that again, because if you are here, it means you are someone who has not given up on improving your English, even if the journey has felt slow, confusing, or frustrating at times. This channel has always been about real growth, not shortcuts, not unrealistic promises, and not surface-level motivation, and today's video fits that promise perfectly. If English has ever made you feel stuck, hesitant, or less confident than you know you truly are, then this video is for you, because what I am about to share is not something you usually hear in courses, classrooms, or motivational speeches. Let me ask you something honestly. How many English videos have you watched so far? How many courses have you started with excitement? And how many times did you feel hopeful in the beginning, only to realize after weeks or months that your English still did not feel natural when you needed it the most? That was my reality for a very long time. I was not lazy. I was not careless. I was genuinely trying. I knew grammar rules. I understood sentence structures. I could even correct other people sometimes. But when it came to expressing my own thoughts smoothly, confidently, and without overthinking, something always blocked me. And the most confusing part was this. The more I studied, the more aware I became of my mistakes, and instead of becoming confident, I became more cautious, more silent, and more self-conscious. That is when I realized something important. English was not failing me. My approach to English was. And then almost accidentally, I developed one habit, a habit so simple and so quiet that I did not even recognize it as a learning technique at first. Yet it ended up improving my English more than any course, book, or structured program ever did. Before we go deeper, let me say this clearly. If you want English that feels calm, natural, and confident, English that works in real conversations and real situations, then make sure you subscribe to this channel and like this video. Because everything here is built around changing how English lives inside your mind, not just how it looks in a notebook. Now let me take you back to the phase of my life where everything slowly began to change. For a long time, English existed in my life only during specific hours. There was English time, when I studied, watched videos, or practiced exercises, and then there was the rest of my day, where my brain immediately returned to my comfort language without hesitation. This separation was invisible, but it was powerful. Because when English is treated like a subject instead of a living language, the brain never fully accepts it as a natural mode of expression. I would sit with a notebook, carefully write new words, underline grammar rules, and feel productive, but deep inside, English still felt external, distant, and slightly intimidating. It was something I visited, not something I lived in. Whenever I tried to speak, my mind would run faster than my mouth. I would think of sentences in my native language first, translate them mentally, check grammar rules mid-sentence, worry about pronunciation, and by the time I was ready to speak, the moment had already passed. This constant translation was exhausting, and no course ever talked about this mental fatigue. Then something subtle happened. I stopped trying to learn English all the time, and instead, I started allowing English to exist quietly in my daily life, without pressure, without expectations, and without judging myself. At first, it felt uncomfortable. It felt incomplete. It felt like I was doing something wrong because there was no clear structure, no checklist, and no visible progress. But slowly, something shifted. English stopped feeling like a performance. It stopped feeling like a test, and it started feeling like a familiar presence. I noticed that my thoughts were no longer switching languages aggressively. Certain phrases came naturally. Certain reactions did not require translation. And the most surprising part was this. I was not putting in extra hours. I was not forcing motivation. This habit blended into my routine so smoothly that my brain adapted without resistance. That is when I realized why this habit was so powerful. Because it worked with the brain, not against it. In the next part, I will reveal exactly what this habit was, how I practiced it in a pressure-free way, and why most English learners completely ignore it even though it is available to them every single day. Now let me finally tell you what that habit was, because by this point, you might be expecting something complex, something technical, or something that sounds like a productivity hack, but the truth is far simpler and far more powerful than that. The habit was this. I started talking to myself in English, silently and naturally throughout my day. Not in a dramatic way, not in full speeches, and definitely not in a forced or artificial manner. I simply allowed my inner voice to shift into English whenever possible. When I woke up in the morning, instead of thinking, I need to get up, in my comfort language, I gently replaced it with, I need to get up now, in English. When I was getting ready, I described my actions in my head. When I was walking, waiting, or sitting alone, I narrated small thoughts, reactions, and observations in English, without stopping myself, without correcting myself, and without worrying about mistakes. At first, this felt strange. My sentences were broken. My vocabulary felt limited. And sometimes my thoughts switched back automatically. But here is what changed everything. I did not fight that resistance. I did not force perfection. I allowed English to be imperfect inside my mind. This is something no course ever teaches you. Most courses train you to produce perfect sentences. This habit trained my brain to think freely. Slowly, my mind stopped panicking about grammar. It stopped searching for the right sentence. And it started focusing on meaning, flow, and expression. That is when fluency began to appear, not loudly, not suddenly, but quietly. I realized something important during this phase. When you speak English out loud, you are performing. But when you think in English, you are practicing without fear. There is no audience in your head. There is no judgment. There is no interruption. This made my brain comfortable with English in a way no classroom environment ever did. Another powerful change happened without me noticing at first. My listening improved automatically, because when English became my inner language, movies, videos, and conversations stopped feeling fast. I was no longer decoding sounds into meaning. I was simply understanding. Even my mistakes started helping me. When I could not express a thought clearly in my head, I naturally searched for better words later, not because a teacher told me to, but because my brain wanted clarity. This habit turned English into a living system inside my mind. And the best part was this. There was no pressure to complete anything. No guilt for missing a day. No feeling of failure. English was no longer a task. It was a presence. Now let me show you how this habit actually becomes powerful in real life, because knowing about it is not enough. What truly matters is how gently and consistently you allow it to grow inside your routine, without turning it into another pressure-filled task. The biggest mistake people make when they hear about thinking in English is that they try to do it perfectly from day one. They try to form long, correct sentences. They try to sound fluent inside their own head. And the moment they feel stuck, they give up and assume it does not work. But this habit does not work through force. It works through permission. I gave myself permission to think in broken English. I allowed incomplete sentences. Sometimes it was just one word. Sometimes it was a simple reaction like "that was interesting," or "I do not like this," or "this could be better." And that was enough. Because fluency does not start with complexity. It starts with comfort. I connected this habit with moments where my mind was already free. While walking, while waiting, while doing routine tasks. Not when I was tired or stressed, but when my brain had space. Slowly, English stopped being something I switched on. It became something that stayed on in the background. Another important shift happened here. I stopped judging my progress daily. I did not ask myself, am I fluent now? I did not measure improvement in days or weeks. Instead, I noticed subtle changes. I responded faster. I hesitated less. I understood jokes, emotions, and tones more naturally. And one day, without warning, I realized something surprising. I was no longer translating before speaking. The sentence simply appeared. That moment does not come with fireworks. It comes quietly, but it changes everything. This habit also healed something deeper than language. It healed my confidence. Because when English becomes your inner language, you stop fearing it externally. You stop seeing it as a test. You stop feeling smaller when you speak. You start owning it. And that is why this habit worked better than any course for me. Courses teach information. This habit builds identity. You stop learning English. You start becoming someone who uses English. If there is one thing I want you to take from this video, it is this. English improves fastest when it stops being treated as a subject and starts being treated as a part of your daily inner world. You do not need more motivation. You do not need more pressure. You need permission to be imperfect and consistent. Start small. Start quietly, and let English live with you. If this video helped you see English differently, then like this video so it reaches more people who are struggling silently. Subscribe to the channel because this space is built for real growth, real confidence, and real transformation. And tell me in the comments, have you ever tried thinking in English before, or will you start today? Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.